Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Cube Stuff Saturdays podcast. I'm your host, Max Chan, or MC Stuff, and joining me today is Frederick and Nicholas Park. So, thank you both for coming on the show today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, thank you.
Alright, so before we get into this conversation, I just want to say that if you, as the viewer, would like to be on the show, like Frederick and Nicholas are, then please join my Discord in the link in the description down below. And also, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask them some basic questions so the viewers get to know them a little bit better. And then after, we're going to have a conversation just with some general questions that I prepared for them. And also, before I forget, we have a show notes document, and I will put that in the link in the description down below. And anything we mentioned in this episode. So now onto the general questions that I ask all the viewers. That I ask all the guests. So the first one I have for you guys is, how long have you guys been cubing, and how did you get into cubing?
For me, I learned around third or fourth grade. Not competitive, like 3 5-minute solves, and then later around sixth grade, so that would be 2018. I met someone named well, I met someone named Max, and then he showed me about competitive cubing and competitions.
And
Yeah, sorry, but may I just ask, how did you learn how to solve the cube? Like
Uh,
a tutorial on YouTube or something? I might have forgot, but yeah.
At my school, I went to the aftercare program, and then there was this was when I was in third, fourth grade, and then there was a volunteer from um, our district's middle school, and then they came as volunteer to teach little kids how to solve a Rubik's cube. So then I just signed up for it.
Okay, nice. Nicholas, what about you?
um, I learned how to solve the 3 by 3 shortly after Frederick did because he inspired me, and that was when I was in around first and second grade. And then I also started to speed cube competitively the same time he started.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so you both started pretty early, like me as well. I started in fourth grade, like sort of in the end of summer, going to fourth grade. So I learned at a summer camp, or I got inspired from a kid at summer camp. He basically had a Rubik's cube. He only knew how to solve the first layer, but that was enough for me to get inspired. So then I went home, bought my first Rubik's brand from Amazon, and then I learned from YouTube, and that's how I just started. I attended my first competition in November of 2015. So yeah, that's mine. It's sort of similar. We both start, like, all of us have started in elementary school, I guess, cubing. All right, so the next question I have for you guys is, who do you think will take over the cubing scene this decade in terms of speed or content creation? Like, who do you think is going to be the main person who's going to, like, break world records, or do you have any specific person in mind? Or, and then in terms of content creation, like, what YouTuber or Twitch solver or something will you could see in the future? If not, then that's all right.
Well, that's a good question. Um, but recently, I think Max Park. Um, he's been improving a lot recently, and recently he just like jumped up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you too. Like, considering he also has autism and a disability as well, that's really impressive, and he's really good at like 3x3 through 7x7 and one-handed as well.
Yeah.
So, what about content creation? What are you guys' thoughts about that?
Well, for content creation, for me, when I search up tutorials and Rubik's Cube how to do stuff, for me, I find JPerm is probably the most common for all tutorials I find.
Yes, and I also learned how to first do F12 from JPerm.
Yeah, I agree. JPerm's really good. Yeah, he has a lot of beginner tutorials and definitely other tutorials for a variety of events. And definitely, I think he stepped into the cubing scene over like the past 2 3 years. Definitely, his videos, he actually doesn't use a DSLR at all. He uses just his phone to film, and he doesn't have a tripod. Actually, I think he uses a cup, Like he cuts indents in like a plastic cup and then puts his phone in there, and that's what he uses for a tripod. And like he puts it on a shelf for his solves. So that's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but he has good information that he shares with the people.
Yeah.
All right, so
Oh
oh
no, I'm sorry.
yeah, go
You
ahead.
you you can go.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask the next question, but if you had something else to say.
Oh, I was just gonna say, um, YouTube is just how like people like JPerm, they like follow their dream of teaching, or I'm just assuming it's teaching because JPerm, he does it a lot and he's good at it.
Yeah, like I think YouTube is his full time job now, or something like that. Maybe he has a small side job, but he makes a lot of money from that and enough to support himself. He has like I think like over 300K subscribers now, and yeah, he gets money from his Patreon as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anything else you guys want to add about that question?
Mm,
Mm.
I'm good.
Me too. I think we can move on to the next one.
Alrighty, so I asked this one to all of my guests on the show, and I have the question is, can you tell the audience two interesting facts about yourself? One of them is going to be cubing related, and then one of them is going to be non-cubing related that you think nobody knows about you.
Would you like to go first, Frederick?
Um, well, if there's something I don't think many people know about me, I actually have a brother named Nicholas. Um, or but aside from the joking, I don't think there's for related to cubing. Nice question, Max.
Alrighty, I could just give you some time to think about it if you want. And Nicholas, is there anything you want to share to the viewers?
Um, I'm not sure if this is that interesting, but I guess right now I'm trying to learn to solve a 3 by 3 blindfolded.
Yeah, that's a good skill to pick up. Like, yeah, same with me. I'm trying to learn that as well. Like, I kind of procrastinated a little bit with that, and it's definitely a hard skill to learn. Yeah, it takes a lot of memorization. And like back to the JPrim thing, he has some tutorials on there. That's where I learned how to solve it as well. Actually, recently over this quarantine sort of time, I got my first blind success of 15 minutes. So yeah, definitely now is the time to take action and do these sort of things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, now there's
Yeah, alrighty. So, yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add about this
no, I was just gonna
question?
say there's plenty of free time to learn what you want.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of cubing as well, because cubing, you can learn a lot of algs and work on your TPS recognition and efficiency with your solves. Because it's always something you can do when you're social distanced. Because you could always like video call with your friends and do some solves and all that, or you could because you don't always have to be with somebody like physically to cube, unlike like some other sports and stuff.
Yeah, cubing is one of those hobbies or sports per se that it's really easy to practice by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So okay, so on to the conversation questions that I have for you. So those were just some general questions that I like to ask all my viewers. I mean, all my guests. I keep saying viewers, but all right. So the first one I have is, what does your average practice session look like, or what do you do to practice? So, for example, if you're sitting down to cube, you have about an hour or so, maybe to cube, or I don't know, however long. And what would you normally do? What events would you practice, and what would it look like?
Or I guess I'll start. For me, or this isn't how it's been like from the beginning, but recently I've just been trying to practice just one event when I do one of my practice sessions. So let's just go for 3 by 3. Um well so sometimes I would just start by warming up my fingers with maybe just some um finger scrambles and solves, and then perhaps I could work on just some cross F2L solves, and then sometimes some slow solves.
Okay, nice. Nicholas, what about you?
Um, Usually when I practice, it's hard for me to like set a time in the day to practice consistently, but maybe like practice a lot at one time. And right now during quarantine, I try and focus more on 5 by 5 and blindfolded, and especially blindfolded because since I have more time, I can like do lots of it at one time and try to not um not try and like push it and then forget about it and then have to relearn.
Yeah, yeah. Especially during this time, we have a lot of time, and there's nothing really to get in the way of practicing and all that. So, oh yeah, and speaking of practicing, like, how often do you guys practice, or like, if you sit down and cube, how long would you normally do that for?
Well, that's the funny thing. If I were to practice, if I were to do it all in one normally in a day, I'm not sure I could do it for more than like 20 minutes at a time. But when I'm just walking around, sometimes I just pick it up, do some like OH things if I'm just watching TV or if I'm bored. And I'm not sure I do it for a long period of time, but I just do it in many different segments over the day.
That's similar with me. Um, when I like Frederick said, when I'm just walking around, I might pick up a cube and just like start turning it and then like get my fingers used to the feel. And then if I want, I would just like sit down and do some solves. But I don't really practice for a long time in one period. It's usually split into short segments along the day.
But yeah, that's a good way to practice. That's definitely very unique as well. You guys both, or like Frederick specifically, has like a good practice regimen that he sort of described there with practicing like F2L and cross specifically. That's definitely a lot more structured than what I do. Um, but also, Nicholas, I sort of combine your aspect into my practice too. I kind of like spam solves and practice specific events as well. Like personally, I've been trying to spam some 3 by 3 and 5 by 5 solves recently, and with that, with like practicing, you can get so far until you reach a certain point where you're gonna have to learn some other aspects or change what you're gonna do in your solves. So like for 5 by 5 for me, um, I recently switched to Yao on 5 by 5. Um, yeah, I know a lot of people. Like or some people do redux and some people do yeah, but just asking, just curious, on 5 by 5, I know you both know how to solve it. What do you guys use, what method?
Um, well, for me, well, I know how to solve 5 by 5, but I've never been to a competition where I actually solve 5 by 5. And recently, I've been trying to just practice 3 by 3 because if I get a good stance on 3 by 3, then when I get to 4 by 4, 5 by 5, and up, when I get to 3 by 3 stage, it could become more comfortable. But for now, when I practice, um, actually, well, um, I do probably the probably most basic way to solve it. I just do my white, yellow, my four centers, and then yeah, I don't do redux or yo.
Cool.
Alrighty. Yeah, Nicholas, what about you? For 5 by 5? Yeah.
Um, for me, actually, um, I used to really like Yao 5, except I tried to I solve the 5 by 5 where I do all the centers then all the edges, and my time actually decreased, so I switched to that because I realized when I do Yao 5, I make, or some of the turns I do, they're just to like fill in the time while I'm looking for, like, I'm trying to look ahead. So I make like lots of moves that I don't have to make.
Yeah, and it's definitely part of personal preference, definitely for the method. Like it, not one universal method might not work. Might work for, it's not going to work for everybody, especially for like the bigger cubes, like 5 by 5. That's why I feel like everybody has a different style, and um, yeah, I feel like without like these different methods, it's hard to experiment with what you have, and yeah, if that kind of made sense. All right. So the next question I have for you guys is: has cubing helped you in any way with any of your other hobbies, like in terms of coordination or like I don't know, finger movement or something? I don't know exactly how to describe it, but has it helped you in any way with other things?
Um, for me, it definitely helped with my memorization skills, like especially practicing blindfolded.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Frederick, what about you?
Um, for me, well, yes, it helps memorization from having to know all the algorithms. And I think it also helps you to learn how to realize patterns, also important in trying to memorize algorithms. And I also think it helps with your fine motor skills, being able to turn with what fingers, with what, um, like if you're doing a flick, a double flick, what fingers you're using.
Yeah, and it's also yeah, that you brought up a really good point there. Have you actually had any experiences where like you were solving a cube in public or something, or you've like solved somebody's cube in public, or somebody like said, "Oh, that's really cool. You can solve a Rubik's cube," or has anybody said that to you in public or anything?
Well, for me, I don't think so. Or it may also be because when I don't really solve them in public. Or if I do solve them in public, it's more in a crowd or with people that also know how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Okay. Nicholas, is there any experiences that you've had with that too?
Or, well, there have been many times at school when people have these unsolved cubes, except they don't know how to solve it. But usually I don't really go up to them and say, like, I can solve a cube, or because usually if I do, then they kind of bring their whole collection or mix it up constantly, and then they keep asking me to solve it again while I have other stuff to do.
Yeah, it definitely gets overwhelming at times sometimes. Yeah, personally, like when I started in fourth grade, I was kind of that sort of person who would solve your cube. At the time, there was this kid who'd bring me his cube every single day. Like, I remember, he would scramble it, and then he had like a Rubik's brand, so he would scramble it, and then the next day, I'd solve it. I remember this was in like the bus line. Have you ever had this like time where like the teachers line you up and like get you ready for the bus and all that?
Yeah.
Like we were waiting, we'd always like wait like a long time, and there was that kid, the same kid who kept coming to me. He had a Rubik's brand, and I he kept giving it to me, and I kept solving it each day, and eventually he learned how to solve it, but he never got into speed cubing, unfortunately. Yeah, but there's one experience I do want to share with you guys. So back into the fourth grade thing, there was actually this kid. He had a Shengshao 4x4. I believe you guys have one too. I've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Mm, yes.
Yeah, and 4x4s are somewhat hard to put back together, because those little internal pieces. So he popped his Shengshou 4x4. It like completely exploded. I didn't see the explosion. It was like an aftercare in the elementary school that I went to, and it popped, and then he put it in a bag, and then he knew I could solve the cube. It was a different kid from the kid who I could always solve the who always brought me his cube, but I fixed it. He asked me to fix it, and then I fixed it. It took me a whole weekend to fix it, but yeah, that was just like one of the weirder experiences that I've had. So does that ring a bell to you guys, or any other experiences that you might have forgot about? If not, that's all right. We can move on to the next question if you need to.
Um, well, I remember one time I went to a competition, cubing competition, and so the next event was 4x4, and I was practicing 4x4, and then it popped, and my event was in like 10 minutes, so it was pretty lots of stress to put it back together.
Yeah. Was that what was that? That your first competition? I think.
Oh yeah, and I got my
I
first
think.
competition too.
Yeah, I forgot. Wait, what? Which one was that again? Do you remember the name?
Um, I don't, but I remember it was
Okay,
at a
it's all right.
church.
Yeah, in that church in yeah, there was like where that documentary sort of was taking place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I was sitting next to you at that competition. But I think did you end up fixing it eventually?
I think I used my brother's 4x4.
All right. Yeah, well, that's fine. It's good to have a brother who does cubing as well.
Yeah.
So Nicholas, any experiences for you?
Not that, or I, for right now, I don't remember any other experiences.
All right, that's okay. All right, so the next question I have for you guys is who's your favorite cuber and who have you looked up to since you started cubing?
Well, I must say, or so Max, you were the person who first introduced speed cubing to me. So, um, well, probably you because you were always really into cubing and you were always really good at how you did it. And I remember you would always explain to me, even if it was really beginner level when I was first learning. So I'm so probably someone like you, and also um probably my brother because he's always been sort of someone I had to be better than because we started around the same time.
Yeah, that's a very unique answer actually. Like since I've had like 9 people on this show so far, and this is the most unique answer. Everybody would say like, "Oh, Max Park," or like Timon Koloshinsky or Leo Bermiro. I don't know, like some of those other cubers who are really fast. But yeah, that's a really good answer. Like, I would have not expected that whatsoever. Like, I'm not the fastest. Nicholas is not the fastest at cubing at all, but we were just there for you to help you with cubing. So I think that definitely like definitely is something that's very touching. And yeah, like Nicholas is always there to like push you harder, and he's sort of your like friendly rival in a sense, right? And yeah, that's just a good way to push yourself, I guess, and somebody to look up to. So Nicholas, is it sort of similar to you in a sense?
Um, yeah, it's sort of similar to me because, like my brother said, he likes to be better than me, which makes him practice a lot. And then when he's practicing, he kind of like encourages me for me to practice, so I could. So while he's practicing, I also like to practice to try and keep improving while he's improving. So yeah.
Yeah, that friendly rivalry is definitely like something that you guys possess that many other cubers can't, because not many people, not many cubers have a sibling who cube as well. Like personally, me and my brother, he kind of doesn't really cube that much, and he doesn't really have that same drive as me to practice a lot. So you guys are fortunate of that, and yeah, very unique for that. Alrighty, so the last question that I prepared here for you guys is, where do you see yourself in the future for cubing, like in terms of improvement? Like, you can tell the audience some like specific goals you have in mind for yourself, like specific algs you want to learn, or like a specific time that you want to achieve, or yeah, I don't know, something like that that you can see yourself doing in the future.
For me, um, it'd always be very amazing if I could get amazing times, but right now I think I'm still trying to improve, but I think I'm happy where I am, that I can cube as fast as I can, and that I have a set of talents that other people don't. So, um, if I were to see myself in the future, I think it's something that I'd enjoy having. Maybe not as if I were to grow much older, I'd still want to go to competitions, be but I'd enjoy being able to have the knowledge and the skills to be able to solve a Rubik's cube, or how to speed solve a Rubik's cube the way I am now.
Yeah, like it's really unique. Solving a cube, like most people, they either don't have the motivation to do it, or they just like they don't, I don't know, they think they're not smart enough to do it. But people who know how to solve Rubik's cube put in that work and dedication to learn to solve it themselves, and no matter what path they take, it always it makes them unique. And yeah, out of like the whole entire world, there's, I think, less than 500,000 people who do cubing, so that's a very small percentage of the world. So yeah, cubers are very unique. So Nicholas, what about you? Where do you see yourself in the future?
Um, in the future, well, I I don't really like hope to be the number one speed cuber in the world, but maybe, like my brother said, to try and just remember how to solve it at the minimum when I get older, because this is like a special talent. So when I grow older, I would want to remember it. Maybe not solve it as fast as I do now, but just remember how to.
Yeah, like it's a really cool party trick to do at like parties, or like something that you can show your kids, like, oh, back in my day I could solve a Rubik's cube in under 30 seconds or something like that. um, yeah, and then maybe you can pass it on and maybe inspire some other people as well. So definitely, in cubing, you don't always have to be the fastest. You can influence other people by sharing your talents with others, and then who knows, maybe they get influenced to be the fast one as well. I don't know. Like I kind of influenced you guys, I guess, in a sense. That's what I was trying to do. Like I'm not the fastest either. So yeah, I think this should wrap it up pretty much. Is there anything else you guys would like to mention about this topic, or anything else you would like to share about on this podcast?
Um, well, I think this will be my last comment. But you said, um, well, you're not the fastest cuber in the world, but um, and if you were to play it as like a party trick, or to show it to other people in the future, it's not exactly how fast you are, but but how motivated and how happy other people see you as when you're solving it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Definitely. All right, Nicholas, is there anything else you would like to say before we sign off?
There's one thing I like about, or there's this one thing I like about speed cubing, and it's that, or for right now, it's something that I could be better at than my brother, which is
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. So, yeah, before we close out, is there anything else you would guys like to plug, like social media or any cool websites, YouTube tutorials, or anything in general that I'm gonna put in the show notes?
Probably not anything unique, just um the standard videos, or like we mentioned before, JPerm is probably our biggest reference.
Oh yeah, I'll be sure to put it in the show notes. So yeah, that was all for this episode. This is actually the longest episode we've ever recorded. We're at like almost 33 minutes, so we had a very great conversation. So thank you both for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you both taking time out of your day to do
Oh,
this. So thank you so much for coming
thank
on.
you for inviting us.
Yeah, before it came, we were looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Alright, so that was it for this episode. I did have a very in-depth conversation with Frederick and Nicholas. I'm very glad to have them on the show. They were in my school before, so that's why I decided to put them on the show. We definitely did have a great time, and they were the first brothers to actually be on the show, so thank you for them to come on, and hope you guys learned a little bit about more cubing experiences and motivation that we learned. So yeah, that's all I had for this one. If you guys would like to ask questions in the comments down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. For the next guests, I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be yet, but we'll just decide that later. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this show on episode 6, Cubing Experiences and Motivation, featuring Frederick Park and Nicholas Park. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.